talk about boredom. It's something that has disappeared out of the world. We've forgotten how to be bored. When I was growing up, boredom was part and parcel of being a kid. You would sit down and do nothing, and that was fine. You would sit down in your car and do nothing. You would go to the dentist or the doctor's waiting room and you would sit down and do nothing. Yes, there would be shitty magazines on the ground or in the waiting room, and that was your form of entertainment. But we've gotten to a place now where we constantly need to be stimulated. We constantly need to feel like we're busy. We constantly have to have our minds occupied with something. The moment we feel a sense of boredom, we automatically go to our phone and tablets and computers, whatever it is, to alleviate any pain that boredom might bring. And I've wondered what the lack of boredom in the world over the last 20 years, 25 years since the dawn of the internet, and then with the rise of smartphones, and then with the rise of social media, what has this done to our brains? I don't know. I haven't looked at the science or anything like that, but I'm genuinely interested to understand what has happened. What I do know that has happened in that time is we have a depression epidemic, a mental health epidemic, where people seem to be more depressed than they ever have been, even though we're more connected than we've ever been. But is digital connection the same thing as having connections in real life? I don't know. They could be. I don't think they are, though. I can't tell you how, in today's world where you think about how connected you might be with people, the constant feeds of what all your friends and family are doing, although all those feeds have just turned into advertisements for these social media companies, and they're less of something to be connected with, and now we are indeed just a product of this system that we live in. But the connection in reality and being with people there's nothing stronger than that. I've got a recent example of moving to this area. I live in the town of Mullumbimby in northern New South Wales, Australia. It is a cool town full of amazing, different people. Some would consider it to be a very alternative, hippie kind of town, but we've got all kinds. And we've recently made a group of friends who we made through our wing people called our kids, through schools and childcare. And these people are amazing, lovely people. And having these true connections with individuals in real life is way better than having hundreds of connections online. So I wonder if this movement into online social media has created this void where we can no longer be bored. And what happens in boredom? I've always wondered about that. Is that where all those amazing ideas happen? Is that where you get time to sit down and just think? Is this the time when you just don't have to use your brain capacity? Surely we've got a certain amount of time that we can dedicate to thinking and consuming things, and we're just turning into these consumption robots. And I'm not really, that doesn't make me happy at all. I'm starting to see it with my own kids and becoming quite aware that a combination of overstimulation, overconsumption is not a good thing. And I want my kids to learn how to be bored. I want my kids to go out on the streets and play. Yes, they do that more than I would say they would probably be doing in metropolitan Melbourne. Our kids get out on the street and play with their mates all the time, which I absolutely love that they're living a similar childhood to what I experienced. But should I be reducing their amount of time on the screen? Is something that I've been thinking a lot about, and learning how to be bored. Because as soon as it's like, I want to go on the tablet, there's like tanties attached to it when you say no. And I don't think that's a good place to be. So me and my wife are going through this situation where we're just going to how do we remove this reliance on technology out of our lives? And I have a few books that I have on the go, but I am running a bit of an experiment, and I'm calling it How to Be Bored. And it's teaching, we're learning. I don't know anything about how to be bored. I've experienced being bored, but how do you teach someone how to be bored? And I think it's just accepting that it's okay not to be doing anything and to let your mind go into that realm of what if, what are we doing? Let me think, let me analyze, let me retrospect, let me do lots of things that doesn't need someone else telling me how to think. And let's be honest, all this information that we've got, has that bring us closer together as a peoples? No. We are more divided than we've ever been. And that's also not a good thing. Because you know what? The saying, ignorance is bliss, is so true. And whilst being ignorant is a good thing, knowing everything is also not a good thing. You know, we've got all these different social movements, these in things of the time, and they become cyclical in regards to what people's attentions are attached to, whether it's Free Palestine, Ukraine, Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement. They just seem like fads when a lot of these things should technically have a lot more impetus attached to it. They should be less of a trendy, cool social justice thing and actually give credence to what they're actually trying to demonstrate. And that's where I think they lose momentum, is that they seem performative rather than actual wanting to make change. Yes, it's easy to talk. Yes, it's easy to demonstrate, but what action is it driving? So hopefully when we remove a lot more of these social media use, learning how to be bored again, maybe we can just find out within ourselves exactly what it is that we want in life. Because I think a lot of people nowadays are just so disconnected from the world. That's what I mean. They're not disconnected from reality. They're disconnected from what makes them happy. They're too busy trying to keep up with the Joneses online, keep up with the latest trends. That shit is, and ironically, I'm going to say this, ironically, a lot of these people are what I would classify as social justice woke people, but at the same time, leaning into technologies which are ultra capitalistic, controlling, and it seems like quite the paradox. I am someone who is always going to be a lefty, if that's what we want to call it, but the more that I've thought about it, I'm just a centrist. And the older I get, I think that's becoming more prevalent. When you have kids, the world changes and your perspective on the world changes. I remember doing one of those political compasses probably 10 years ago, and I look like a hardcore social justice warrior. And now people would probably think that I'm an ultra right-wing person based on my views. And I just think I'm a common sense person. I'm not necessarily into performative social justice. I know what equality is. I know what racism is. I know all these things, and I'm aware of it. I'm from an immigrant family. I'm mixed race. I've got all the things. But, you know, one thing we don't have as individuals is a true deep understanding that, for most part, most of us probably believe in 95% of the same thing. It's that 5% that seems to divide us, which is weird. And again, I think it's just because we've forgotten how to be bored. And this whole world of trying to keep up with the Joneses has morphed into this world of so many opinions and so many low, it sounds harsh, but low information people who read headlines and snippets and think they understand how the world works. That's not how the world works. You're just reading a little bit and you haven't seen multiple sides of it. You haven't gone to the depths of really understanding the nuances. You know, not everything is black and white, you know, and a lot of the time two things can be true at the same time, even though they sound quite opposite in what they are. That was quite the segue out of boredom, really, wasn't it? But I want to create something about how to be bored. Spending more time in the outdoors. That's not boredom, that's activities. But how do we just turn our technology off and be comfortable with that? You know, I'm going to do stuff like, still on the screens, but it's not connected. But I used to be a massive fan of watching movies, TV series. They bring me great enjoyment. And I don't do that anymore. I just realized that the other day. I just don't watch a movie and enjoy it. I'm fidgety. I need to know what's going on. I need to check my phone while I'm in bed. So I'm going to make new rules around when I'm watching a movie I really want to watch. Technology has gone away and I am focused solely on enjoying this movie. Whew, that was quite a rant. And I'm actually tired from talking about it, but boredom. How do we be bored again? Let's find out.